Hi, and welcome to the Fluid Voice. I'm one of your gracious co-hosts, Ozma in the Dark, doing, I guess, okay, pronouns she, they. How are you doing, Christy?
I'm doing good. Yes, I'm doing good. I also find it funny. We were the two live people and three avatars. We're outnumbered.
Avatar Master Race.
Oh no.
The avatars are taking over.
Sorry, that's a gamer joke for anybody who's not familiar with the whole PC thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was mostly familiar with Yahtzee. Starting it. Did Yahtzee start it?
I think Yahtzee took
Perfect.
advantage of it, but I've been hearing about it since well before Yahtzee first talked about it.
Okay. Anyways, pronouns.
She, they.
I'm perfect, and he, him.
I meant
sorry.
Christy.
She, her, and yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. How are you doing?
Doing fine. And he, him.
Okay, and our guest co-host,
Everybody has a hard time with my name because it's Haida.
Well, no. I was talking about our guest co-host first, but I forgot your name. It's staring right at me too.
It's Siren.
Siren.
Siren, Cyrus, whatever you want to call me, it doesn't really matter to me.
Okay, and pronouns.
He, him.
And how have you been doing?
Okay.
Well, that's better than terrible. And
it is, yeah.
And our guest for tonight, Aliakai. Did I pronounce that right?
You did. You were one of the first people who's actually gotten it right the first time, because everybody skips the A, the second A in Aliakai. That's Aliakai is what everybody seems to call me.
Oh, that's so weird. Aliakai just makes more sense. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I kind of burnt my brain out yesterday doing the script for my next video because I had to go through a ton of sources to do it, but I'm doing all right. As I said earlier, she, they. Most people call me Allie because it's easier to remember than Aliakai.
Oh. Well, for some reason, I want to keep calling you Aliakai. I actually like that name.
That's perfectly fine. It means Lady of the Dogfish House. It's derived from Aliakai, which is my Haida name.
Your what name?
Haida. I'm half Native American.
Oh, okay. Lots of things I am unfamiliar with. I mean, to be fair, we weren't taught much in school.
No. Which is a failure.
Yeah. So, why not dive right into the topic this week? Just dive right into the ship that is called Allyship. I don't know why I named the episode this. I feel uncomfortable with just one name things, but yeah. I'll mention my thoughts first, and then everyone can mention in whatever order you want to. Your thoughts on Allyship. I mean, so in general, I think Allyship's kind of important for marginalized people, and some people use it just to try to hand wave any sort of criticism of themselves. And yeah, I like allies. Allies, genuine allies, is a good thing. It's not a very complicated thing for me. Anyways, how about you guys? What are your initial thoughts? Your general thoughts. I'm sorry, the cat distract me. Any one of you can speak up.
Well, then I'll speak up.
An ally is an ally is supposed to support you in your endeavor. Whatever that endeavor is, they're supposed to be in support of you in doing that. It's not supposed to be. They don't do it for you. They do it with you, or they help you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Witch has a great phrase in that, which is "help her get out of the way." It's the tagline for the channel that she just launched, but it's also something that she says quite frequently when in reference to things like allyship. But I think there's a little more than that too. I think that allies need to be willing to help, but also to stop and to listen and to let the group that they are helping speak for themselves. Like, a lot of allies, I think, tend to end up stepping too far forward into the limelight and start speaking for whatever group they're trying to help out. This has happened a lot in the BLM movement. This has happened a lot with the trans rights movement, where cis people that have larger platforms will come forward and start speaking for trans people, and even though their hearts are in the right place, they ultimately end up kind of overriding a lot of trans voices in the interim, so to speak, or in the process. So I think that it's important also to let those groups, to elevate voices within those groups rather than just promoting your own ideas if you're an ally. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Siren?
Fuck. I basically just don't have like a big opinion to say. Like,
Go for a big opinion. It's fine.
but I don't have.
Oh, you don't have. That's fine, too. I don't have a terribly big opinion either. I'm kind of like, strangely enough, I'll defer to the cis guy because he said it right.
Well, I think that there's an important issue to talk about. Like, as much as I want to avoid community drama, like, I think that it's really important to talk about the willingness for allies to, like, speak up, whether in public or in private, to their friends when they're being crappy to whatever group they claim to be allied with. Like, because that's something that's been going on a lot lately, is where people like value their friendships and their comfortability socially over the things that they claim that they're working towards. And I think that starts to turn into an issue when then this, say somebody says something transphobic, your trans friend is hurt, but you're not willing to step up, like, and let that other person know, hey, that wasn't cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, then I can totally see that.
Especially because a lot of us, when we get hurt, get ignored.
Yeah, and then it's essentially allyship in name only. Cause or not in name only. Almost superficial support. Superficial seems a bit
Facebook
harsh.
allyship is the way that one of my friends puts it. It's Facebook allyship. You'll share the post, but you won't actually, go and walk in the march.
Yeah, although for some people, obviously that is more difficult. Although, I mean, even sharing the post is more than some people do. Because sharing the post oftentimes on Facebook oftentimes ends up starting discussions if you have people who you're friends with who are transphobic.
Yeah, I've been dealing with finding out that a few of my family members have some subtle transphobia to them. Like the bathroom thing has been driving me absolutely crazy.
Oh my god.
My God.
The bathroom thing is just awful.
It all comes down to the bathroom thing in the end.
Well, I mean, obviously it's people go to the bathroom a lot, and if you don't want to see someone ever, you try to kick them out of being able to go to the bathroom. Like,
I think though that ContraPoints did a really good video on that, where she talked about how a lot of TERFs in particular who are, use the whole bathroom thing, a lot of them are afraid, a lot of them have been hurt or something else. Like I was like this. I talked to Christy about this in the interview that we did over on my channel. But like I used to be a TERF years and years ago, back when I was in college, well before I ever became a part of publicly anything. I didn't understand transness. I didn't realize that a lot of my dysmorphia was actually dysphoria, and Callan was the one who helped me figure that out. But like for a long time, not only did I not understand it, but also I had been traumatized in that specific way. It was by a friend, but it was in that specific setting. And so for the longest time, I had that problem where I was like, well, people can use this and all these other things. And it took one of my friends it took a combination of college and one of my friends kind of explaining away the logic to me. Like, why would somebody go through all of the hassle and hell that trans people go through just to be able to be predatory when there's so much easier ways, quote unquote, to do that? Where it took kind of some of the logical breaking that down, where there's not nearly as many social consequences for a lot of the ways that predators can predate. And so why would somebody go to all that hassle just to do that? And it took some of that, plus getting to know trans people, and eventually, coming to the realization that I too am trans, if you count non-binary people as trans, which a lot of people that I've met don't. And so I always have like this discomfort with saying I am trans.
I mean, I do. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the Girlflex trans woman, I consider you. Non-binary people are trans too.
Very early on in and I'm gonna stick with the bathroom thing, but on a slightly different direction. Very early on, when I was still testing out, well, not testing out, I'd already come out, but I'm still working on it. I asked a cis ally to go to the bathroom with me because I was terrified.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, I could see how uncomfortable she was with doing that, and yet she got over it and did it anyway, which was kind of like, in a way, that's more points on the board, the stray sheep there.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah. I asked. It took a while for me to get over the bathroom fear. Especially after news articles like that woman in Target who peeked under all the stalls to check. Like, that's creepy ass behavior.
Yeah, that's behavior that shouldn't even be possible, but that's beside the point. Like, why the hell would you do that? And then there's also like the cis, I think it was a cis, just slightly more masculine looking person got her butt beat for being in a bathroom because somebody thought she was trans. And it's like, that's fucked up on so many levels. Like, you know, if you're gonna be a bigot, at least be right about it.
Well,
my
I'm not saying bigotry is okay at all. I'm just saying that it's terrible that even we're in a situation where that's even possible.
My mom gets clocked as trans in various bathroom situations, which I find is funny. Yet it helped her become an ally, because she's kind of, this is what you're going through. This is one of the small things you're going through. Then I get it. But yeah, my mom gets clocked more than I do, which I don't even think Siren knew. So
Can we talk about the obsession with clocking people? Because, like, why the fuck do people do that? Why do people care?
Well, they think that they can tell. I will grant you that sometimes you can get a pretty good insight, but you're going to be wrong an awful lot. You have to face that. These are assumptions you're making. These are wild assumptions you're making, but people think that they can tell. that
Yep.
somehow that they've gotten special magic insight.
I mean, I'm just gonna point out, because let's be real here. Most of the obsession is with trans women. Trans
Yeah.
men get crap, but it's both easier for trans men to pass because of the way that sexual dimorphism ultimately works with hormones. And also, trans men, people are significantly less concerned about a trans man in a man's bathroom than they are about trans women. So, like, let's be real about that for a second. Like, if you've got PCOS as a cis, like, you know, the AFAB person, right? Like, you can end up with a lot of those same traits as like trans people who are going through the transition do. Like, you can end up like, I get random dumps of testosterone from my ovaries. This just happens. And I sometimes grow a mustache because of it, because it'll like last for long enough that I will start to get more body hair and other small things. It goes away after a little while, but those things do freaking happen. Like, you can end up with random hormonal imbalances that just cause that stuff anyway. So trying to clock somebody is abusive to begin with. And you're probably wrong anyway, because there's as much of a chance that the person that you're trying to be bigoted against you're wrong about as there is that you're not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's a whole lot of the bathroom thing is based on the assumption that they can know. And what they're saying is, I will be able to tell what this person started their life as, always. And so when I see a person who started their life as a man, who is now dressed as a woman, going into the ladies' room, I right now can stop them. But if we allow trans to be using the ladies' room, trans women to use the ladies' room, then I can't. And if I stop them, I'm being a bigot. See, and that's the danger here, because I spend all my time monitoring those bathrooms and stopping people. You wouldn't believe how many people I've stopped who were entering there in my career as a avenger of bathrooms.
The bathroom bodyguard, like.
Well, we brought in a trans man, and there was this specific reason for that. So, you've had because you're pre anything right now, other than having come out. What I've never asked you this. What do you do in the bathroom situation?
I don't. The problem is with how feminine my body is and how feminine I present, even though I am, you know, a guy, I still dress the way I want to. So it's like impossible for me to go into a men's bathroom without someone saying something, especially because I still wear dresses as well sometimes. It's too scary. I don't do it because I've been harassed a few times, and I avoid going to the bathroom as much as I can. It's just terrifying.
Hey, let's just be clear here for a second. We need to normalize people who people perceive as men wearing dresses anyway, because they're fucking comfortable and they're a lot cooler in the summertime. Like, there is absolutely no reason that if you enjoy wearing dresses, that regardless of what your gender identity is, that you should somehow be barred from that. It's just a piece of fabric.
It really is. I love dresses. They're so nice. They're so comfortable. I usually just wear them around the house now because, again, I hate being misgendered, and it's so easy for people to just look at me because of my body, and, you know, I'm wearing a dress. And even if I correct people when I'm wearing a dress, they look at me and they go, nah.
Yeah, like that's always the stressful thing, and always just in general, if you're trying to deal with transitioning and you don't want to get misgendered all the time, that's why that's why there's so much focus on passing, but really the argument should be it shouldn't matter. Like, it legit shouldn't matter.
No, it really shouldn't, honestly. Like, I would... Go ahead.
I wanted to say, I know I keep saying the why is it always the toilet? Why is it bathrooms? What is this? It's there is a thing about it, but it's not connected. It's the method of control. It's that the freedom, that participation is a human right. That's really one of the ones that's been held by the UN Council, participation.
Yeah.
And bathrooms are how you participate. You can't go out in public. Eventually you will have to poop. You can't stay out there if you have to go home to poop.
Or just
And it's a way of limiting participation. Yeah, pee.
Well, yeah,
You
which
have
is
to.
especially more difficult if you're dealing with spironolactone, which increases how much you pee because it's a diuretic. So that makes it even more difficult to. Maybe that's the reason they go after women's bathrooms, because they know about the spironolactone being a diuretic, and they just know that, having to pee more equals it's even more restrictive to go.
I think you're giving the bigots a lot more credit than
Oh.
it is.
Oh yeah, no, I was joking. There's no way they even know anything about that. Like half the time,
These are the
they
people,
don't
these are the-
believe that my boobs grew naturally.
Well, one of the things I pass a fair amount now, so it's less scary. But I still wear a particular garment that makes it so I do not have to pee, which is not safe to do, but it's still safer. So I'd rather risk the urinary tract infection than have to deal with public accommodations.
Well, and I was just gonna say, these, like, the people that you were joking about, though, are the same people that seem to think that teenagers being allowed to transition somehow is going to do irreparable damage to their bodies, which is, like, they don't understand the basic fucking science about things like puberty blockers, for example, and they think they're being given to, like, 6-year-olds. So, I mean, like, what could make any of us think that they would possibly understand the intricacies of, like, hormone replacement therapy? It's silly.
You read the studies on puberty blockers, and they're like freaking miracles. They're just amazing that they've gotten it so right out of the box. If that makes any sense.
Well, I was put on puberty blockers briefly back in the 1978 because I grew breasts. I had gynecomastia, which is the pre-growth boobs, basically, on male bodies, which I've said before, my diary entry for that was my body is trying to fix itself, because I didn't have any sex ed because it's 1978.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
if I could have stayed on the puberty blockers, that would have been nice.
I mean,
well, I'm just saying. I mean, if you look at things like the pill for controlling menstruation and so on, that was such a mucked up thing for so long, where it was, dangerous and efficacy and so on. It had all kinds of problems. It was not
that shit's magic now. Like, I'm on the seasonal, the 3-month one, because of my PCOS, as I mentioned. That stuff is magic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
go
I'm
ahead and
saying that
finish what you were
puberty
saying,
blockers
sorry.
that, like, since like, the early 80s, it's just been, they had it right. They did it. They had it right on the first try. All the tests bear it out. It's like, it's all smooth sailing. It's all right. It sounds like something that's fiction. That isn't how the development of such a complex thing would work. We normally see it working. But no, it just works like it says it does. It does what they said, and it doesn't do other things.
Well, Siren, if I don't know at what age you figured out what was going on. Would you have gone with the puberty blockers? Is that a thing that you would have wanted?
I mean, I can't remember when I figured things out, to be honest, because for so long I had friends telling me that it was impossible for me to be trans. But I don't know, to be honest, because I don't know that much about puberty blockers. I don't.
It's all right. It's all right when you get to be adult. No, you are adult. When you're activist about this, you have to learn everything about everything involving trans, even if it isn't something that is not affecting you. So it's one of those things we just have to know. We just have to have at the tip of our tongues and whatever all the studies are and everything, including the bad ones.
Yeah, I've been meaning to look into a lot of stuff. I just don't. I'm constantly distracted by a lot of things. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there you talk to
If
Aliakai.
you want a recommendation from, you just go to Wikipedia and you go puberty blockers and you start there. You go down to where the sources that they're listing for what they want to do. Start looking at those sources. See if you can track them down. What are the studies they're talking about? Can you get to read the abstract from the study and see what the people who did the study say the study shows?
Also, JSTOR itself
and you
also
just
has
do that for a
free...
couple issues and. Sorry, go right ahead.
Oh, I was just saying JSTOR also has free accounts where you currently, because of COVID, you can read up to 100 articles online for free a month. And they have a really sophisticated search engine where you can find info on just about everything.
Which site was this again?
JSTOR.
JSTOR?
It used to be that you could only access it for free through like a college institution, but they just opened up free personal accounts that used to be like 25 papers a month, and now they're up to 100 because of COVID. And they have a subscription that's like 20 or 30 that lets you read unlimited papers online for free, and you can download up to 12 per month.
Yeah, it's a good resource.
Yeah,
but
no, that sounds like a wonderful resource.
If you're not planning on being activist and you just want to be,
what was it called again?
JSTOR, JSTOR, JSTOR.org. It's excellent. Like it's the gigantic research repository that most colleges used, but more and more people outside of colleges are getting interested in those things. So they just introduced within the last couple of years ways for people who are not part of institutions to access it.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who don't want to be activists and just want to live, life as they are. And so we're so used to being activists up here that we're kind of like ignoring that the other people exist too.
Well, I feel like, Ocean and I did videos on politics recently. I went after J.K. Rowling again for the Harper's letter. Specifically, though, what I did was I did an in-depth analysis on it about how and why it's propaganda and how propaganda manipulates. And so I broke down like the 3 paragraphs by using a systematic analysis to kind of show that it was basically anti-trans and anti-minority at its core, but it did everything it could to hide that and make, the example was your centrist aunt, fence sitters basically, but your centrist aunt TM agree with it. But like when you look at stuff like that, when you look at things like, say, religion, religions that are not Christianity, or even atheism for, the rest of the folks in this stream, it's a political statement just to exist if you are or identify with those things. Like, Ocean and my religions are political because Christians don't think they should exist. There's like, and in
some
the same
atheists.
Way, yeah, and a lot of, I describe them as anti-theists. generally, because there's two camps in the atheist activist like circle. There's anti-theist, which thinks that religion, they think that religion needs to be eradicated because it's harmful automatically regardless of what it is, and anti-harm, which those are people who want to limit the ability for like religions that contain harmful practices and beliefs to hurt other people. And like most of the anti-harm folks I've noticed can be allies with polytheists. Most of the anti-theist ones, not so much. But the point that I was making with this, the reason I brought it up, is because it kind of ties in with trans identity in the sense that most trans people end up having to be activists whether they like it or not, because our existence is political. In the same way that my religion is political, my existence as a gender fluid person being out open at all is political. Christy's existence, Ozma's existence, CyreneV's existence, all of our existences, whether we like it or not, because of the shitty culture we find ourselves in, it's political. So to some degree, a lot of us end up having to be some form of activist, even if we don't do as a lot in the public sphere, even just with friends and family, having to justify our existence and explain it over and over and, wrestle with people coming to terms with us being who we are.
Yeah.
It's been 2.5 years, and my mom finally sent one package to me spelled right, and one package to Cyrus spelled right. So that was sweet.
Yeah, no, that's nice.
2.5 years, that's a reasonable amount to come around, I guess.
I don't know if I went too far talking about that, by the way.
She's putting in the effort.
Yeah.
No, I mean, a lot of this comes back to allyship and who, I mean, obviously there's some people who are more, not intrinsically more welcome to being allies, but like there are certain ideologies and attitudes that people can have that affect their ability to be an ally, or the likelihood of them, or the difficulty it is to get them to be an ally.
Well, I think that there's a lot of people to whom, for example, being wrong is basically a sin, which, but tis, right? Like talking about Christianity, but like that was kind of the way that I was brought up. Christy and I talked a little bit about this in our interviews, but one of the worst things that you could possibly be in my house growing up was wrong. If you make a mistake in the way you talk, if you slip up, if you stammer, anything like that, that was all targeting for ridicule. And I feel like that happens in schools a lot too, not just with parents, but like in schools, it happens in public places. Like there's not a lot of room for learning and growth. And when you're raised in that kind of environment, and when you're given that kind of message, even if you have perfectly accepting parents and a decent upbringing with schooling, like you might encounter that in a workplace or in college or just in the world around you, right? Like there are people who were raised this way that will inflict that on you. All you need is one boss who's a complete asshole every time you screw up, right? And that lack of an environment for learning and growing can produce people who are so hardened to their opinions that they're terrified of admitting they're wrong, even if secretly they know you're right. And we've seen that a lot on the alt-right, actually. We've seen a lot of people who have like admitted that they're grifters in private, but in public still continue to do what they do because they're not allowed to be wrong.
Yeah.
I know people who are afraid to be wrong, which is a difficult thing. I have one of the best things I learned was not to ever be afraid of being wrong. Because it's useful. I'm also thinking. I'm also thinking of. Yeah, I know. We've talked about it. What's that?
I'm always afraid of being wrong, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's okay. Being wrong is part of life. It's not a death penalty. One of the things is also coming out is a thing. I lost a lot of friends over it, which I expected. I didn't lose as many as I thought I would.
Yeah.
it caused a bit of a rift in the Writers Association I am in, which now I won't name, but you can find it out easy enough.
Right,
I mean, to be fair, that particular association's been having some political problems for quite some time, though it looks like it's starting to sort itself out.
Yeah, well, there's the other one. The SFWA has its own problems.
Well, I mean, both of them have their own problems. Like, let's face it, you know, the other one has been slowly elevating women's voices, but has had a very hard time with any other marginalized community.
Yes, very much so. But I don't know. Did you guys lose friends over this?
I definitely didn't, but that's because I was terrible at keeping contact with friends, and so I didn't have a lot of friends to lose, and most of the friends I kept were after I already knew. I don't know.
I suppose. Since you started talking about the non-binary or gender fluid, how about you, Allie?
So I haven't lost any friends because of it, thankfully, but I did get a bit of pushback from some of my in real life friends. In part because a lot of them are like, but you're so feminine. How could you possibly be gender fluid? Like, how could you possibly not identify as a woman sometimes? My partners, funnily enough, both accepted it basically immediately. They're like, yeah, there are days you are super masculine and like very aggressive, etc., and there are days you are not. That makes sense. Like, there are days where I will go around in like the frilliest, most feminine dresses you've ever seen in your life, and then there are days where I'm hiding my body basically in potato sacks because I can't stand how violently feminine it is. And like, they observed, as soon as I explained it to them, they were like, yeah, we've seen you go through that. But my family doesn't know for the most part, and part of that is because like they won't accept one of my cousins who is binary trans, let alone somebody who is, you know, one of the, as the conservatives of my family would put it, attack helicopter genders. You know, haha, come up with a better joke, right? But like, you know, any gender identity that isn't the binary, they can't even understand binary trans folks. Like, anybody that doesn't fit in those narrow categories, like, if I came out to my family, I'd probably lose the rest of them, the ones that didn't ditch me for being a pagan.
What was your experience, Siren?
I didn't lose any friends. I had some friends that were confused for a while, that I had to like help understand things. But I did have two friends that I actually was gonna come out like at least 2 years before I did, because I had figured it out, but then I had them tell me, there's no way, you're way too feminine. And they actually, strangely enough, they suggested maybe you're gender fluid or maybe you're non-binary, but I don't think you're trans. So, and I trusted those friends a lot, so I, thought I was just making it up. So I didn't come out for a while. But other than that, like, actually, my main friend group immediately switched. Like, they immediately adjusted, and I love those people so much. And every time they mess up, because my one friend has only messed up once, and he actually like said, hit me, like, do something, punish me for that. I'm like, no.
Well, thankfully, I started gathering a lot of trans friends around before everything, so that did help.
Yeah, I'm surprised by just the sheer volume of trans folks that are my friends within this community. Like, it's kind of crazy, like, just how concentrated we actually are in this community, even though nobody listens to us.
I mean, not nobody. Clearly, there's one or two people who listen to us.
Only on Sundays when the stars are aligned.
Well, only if they know someone who's trans in real life and they're actually friends with them and they actually care. That's the only way that they'll listen. And even
Clearly,
then, yeah,
okay,
it
like-
is like on Sundays when the stars align. That is also true.
The like that's a running joke also from the interview that I did with Christy Abbey, where we talked at length. Which if you guys haven't seen that, go check it out over on my channel. My co-host Jen Aldrich is actually chilling in the chat right now, which is awesome.
I see.
We had an extended conversation about how basically a lot of trans folks, if we're open about being trans, we only get to talk about being trans, like when we get called on to other channels and things like that. Like that's it. You get pigeonholed into a corner and like, this is what I'm talking to you for. And like that happens with topics in general for a lot of people, but like with trans folks, it's just assumed automatically that because you're trans, that's what you want to talk about. You know what I mean?
My God, yeah.
Yeah, this is why I do the fluid voice, so I can get all that out of my system and be like, if you want to talk just about trans stuff, you can do it on the fluid voice. I like to talk about other stuff if I happen to end up on another channel. I've been a mess recently, so I haven't ended up on many other people's channels, but I know, like Zanzi or whatever, when I was on his channel, he asked what I wanted to talk about, and I'm just like, ableism and asexuality spectrum stuff. I'm tired of the trans stuff.
Yeah.
Another point which somebody pointed out to me is that they were so desperately tired of being constantly called upon to be a representative of their community in situations where they can only be adequate or fail. That all they can do is, if they mess up representing things, they can be hurting people who they care about. And if they succeed, they're nothing but just they just succeeded. They don't win anything for succeeding.
If I may use, oh, I'm sorry. Finish.
No, that was. I was
going to interject. I was going to interject and then throw it back. But if I may use.
No. I was just trying. Since there was a long pause, I went to Phil.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay.
Please.
What you're saying is every single one of us has, and pardon the slur, but it's necessary here. Every one of us has to be the perfect tranny.
For all the token, like we can't be one of the
bad. That's what they were saying was they couldn't, if they didn't do it right, then they were a traitor to they betrayed people they cared about, people who were important to them. And if they did it well, there was no prize. You just did your job. And it somehow was their job to represent trans people all the time if called upon. They're it's crazy and it's oppressive.
And I've talked about that before, actually. This is something that cishet white men, and I'm sorry if I've got any allies in the audience that identify as this, like, apologies in advance because I'm talking about this as a generalization and you guys aren't used to what I'm about to talk about, but you're about to feel it in a second. It's called the burden of representation. Basically, I explained to my partners about this because they're both, one of them's a cishet white man, the other one is a non-binary white person who mostly still identifies as masculine but occasionally doesn't. Kind of more gender fluid like I am. But anyway, the point being is that I had to explain to them that basically at all times, because of the fact that I am half Native American and because of the fact that I am, like assigned female at birth and people very readily identify those features. Again, my body is violently feminine. I showed pictures of myself to Christy Abbey. She knows what I'm talking about. Like, I have curves in all the places. I thought I sent them to you, damn it. I have curves in all the places that people want them when they're overweight, I'll put it that way. And unfortunately, it's wonderful on the femme days. It's fucking terrible on my more days where I'm like, I want to be androgynous. Why can't I? So, like, I am a woman first, quote unquote, in that sense that that's how I'm perceived by the vast majority of people. I'm a Native American first in the sense that that's the way I'm perceived by the vast majority of people. I get to be a person after that. And quite often, like, I end up representing what people think of in terms of Native Americans, etc., when they interact with me. You know, as somebody who's starting to come out more as a non-binary person, as a gender fluid person, that's going to start to be a thing as well. But the point being is that we are members of our groups first in the minds of most people because we're not considered to be, quote, normal. And a lot of cishet white guys don't get that. Like, they've never had to deal with that. So when you start generalizing about cishet white guys, you get the hashtag not all men bullshit. Because they've never had to deal with being a cishet white guy first and a person second.
Well, I pass for white. Siren passes for white.
And people making generalizations about them.
We're by no. Yeah, I pass for white. Siren passes for white. It's kind of a strange thing because we're very, very Hispanic. So, or I am, and black, and it's always been a weird thing to be the only one who passes in my immediate family.
I pass for about half the year.
I'm sorry, Siren?
It's been a thing that people tell me I'm lying about for some reason.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, and they're like, no, you're just white. You're very, very white, and I'm like, okay.
Look at my features and tell me that. That's how I've dealt with it for the most part. But for the most part, I enjoyed passing privilege, and that's another part.
Yeah, that's the thing I get from people from the South and Midwest for about half the year when I'm pale. But up here, people know what a Native American looks like because, you know, we all don't look like Cherokees. I look like I'm Salish. I'm not, I'm Haida, but I look like I'm Salish. So, like, most people automatically up here identify me as what I am. And I've gotten racism for it. I haven't gotten near as much racism as a, you know, like, Latinx person would or a black person would, but I have gotten it. And again, like, I end up getting to be Native American first, a person second, a woman first, a person second. And like, that burden of representation, it hits trans people hard too. Like, that's what I was talking about when I said our existence is political. Like, we automatically are considered to be representatives. And if you're, quote, one of the bad ones, then you're going to get blamed for coloring somebody's perception of trans people badly. And that's a lot of fucking pressure to be under. When in reality, that person already made up their mind about who we are and just used you as an excuse, which is sad, but it's not your fault.
Yeah.
There is an advantage to sometimes, and I'm starting to get passing privileges, and I kind of like the stealth part of it now. I mean, I have a friend, especially when I'm hanging out with her, for some reason I'm I pass a lot more, which is an attitudinal thing, I think.
Yeah, because if the people around you are treating you like a woman, you're more likely to get treated like a woman.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of me who likes fading into the background. That's my best. That's my best look, is part of the wallpaper. But I found that I couldn't do that anymore, so I came out swinging.
I've only been correctly gendered by a stranger once, and I love that woman, but it's really difficult to, like, not look how you identify and then say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm this, and people are like, oh, and then they immediately see you as a completely different person, and, you know, you're just this person who happens to identify this way. They see you as just your identity.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
get the awkward gender conversations all the time after that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want to bring this up. I don't know why.
These two.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
No, you know what's fun? When people know how your pronouns and know who you are, and the moment they get mad at you, they use the incorrect pronouns and
Just to
to
get
hurt
back
you.
at you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Callan gets a lot of that on Twitter from anti-theists, because we got Callan hanging out in the chat too. A lot of anti-theists that get into fights with pagans, if they know that you have any sort of trans identity, will use it as a weapon against you. Like, I actually had somebody whose stream I was on at one point start misgendering one of my friends, and I ended up calling his ass out on it on stream. And like his excuse was, well, this person was really disrespectful to me, so I'm going to be disrespectful back. And I'm like, there are ways to insult somebody that have nothing to do with their intrinsic identity and can't cause suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be an asshole, there are ways to do that that's not, you know, potentially going to throw somebody into a crisis of identity, right? Because I've been there.
Well, there's being a dick and there's being hateful. Like, if I'm like, your choice in outfits is awful or whatever, that's like, I mean, it might be true, but like, I have no idea. I haven't actually seen your outfits, but no, you can be a dick to someone without just being like excessively cruel. Like, there are lines that
Chalk up another point for the Avatar army.
Yeah. The I will say one thing. There was before I went on hormones and I stopped doing screaming fights for the most part. Cyrene and I had a screaming fight, and I kept using the wrong pronoun because I have known him for 18 years, you know, and there was a point all of a sudden Siren brought the yelling down and said, "You're not using my gender against me, right?" And I said, "What? No, of course not. I would never do that." And it was like, "Okay, just checking." And then we went back to yelling, and it was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, as all fights with trans should go.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
and then there's like the addendum to that is when people insist on dead naming or dead gendering you when talking about memories.
Oh God.
Because
My
they
mother.
were XYZ at the time, I'm gonna call them blah blah blah, you know, just for the purpose of the story.
Yeah, my mom, she'll say stuff like when she gets really sad, she'll like go, "I had a daughter, and now I have to," and like, it's so shitty. I don't think she means it to be shitty, but just referring to my past self was just, ugh. Sorry, I don't know how to words.
I think there's a way to talk about good memories though without deliberately misgendering somebody. Like, you could just say, like, hey, when she and I used to hang out together, if the person's like trans woman, right? Like, when she and I used to hang out together, XYZ, or hey, there's this one time that she did this, that, or the other. You don't have to misgender somebody to talk about a fucking memory.
Right. Yeah.
For the first time ever, my mother said recently, "When you were a little girl," and I cried profusely, but she didn't get to see that, but I did.
Yeah, no.
Well, and Jen Aldrich in the chat actually brought up a good point. I usually toss it out like if somebody got married. Would you reference them like this person maiden name when talking about them before they got married and changed their name?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, why would
Yeah.
you need to specifically just call them by their maiden name to talk about a memory? You don't.
That's
Yeah.
actually a really good point. I like that.
Jen is absolutely filled with fire and is amazing for those sorts of analogies. Like, she's really good at that.
Gotcha. We found the good atheist nice people. Good atheist nice people. Wow.
She definitely is one of the good ones, if you want. She's definitely anti-harm and jokes about how she feels like she's the only atheist who never went through an anti-theist phase. She just was like, okay, people can believe stuff, but just don't be an asshole.
I don't think I went through an anti-theist phase. I went in more of a phase of trying to get my atheism accepted, but I don't think I ever had a problem with other people's religions. I never got that.
I did the angry atheist phase. Oh my god.
I did as well, but that's because I was raised like it.
We've got the interesting situation of having 2 atheists and 2 Wiccans in the house.
Ooh.
Yeah. So,
See,
Siren and I
hold
are
a value.
atheists.
I'm willing.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm an atheist. I'm willing to judge someone on their beliefs. I qualify as an anti-theist and anti-religion, in that I think it's both wrong of and for people to hold beliefs that they cannot justify to others, and that I hold that most of those beliefs aren't really good. You don't have good sound justification for the beliefs. But I also place there's certain values on them, and that where it's, as I brought up earlier before we were actually on the air, it's the that a number of pagan beliefs don't involve the abdication of responsibility, where you foist the decisions in your life off onto the gods and then say that they're responsible for how you act. And without that, there's really much less of a problem. I'm just being picky and saying it's my business.
Well, yeah, and I've talked extensively about this with Ocean, but like, as a Stoic, I am absolutely responsible for everything that I do. Like, the gods can't tell me to do this, that, or the other thing. Like, there is like a component there of respect and reciprocity in the relationship between humans and the gods. Like, you know, the whole idea of the gods will help people who help themselves is very much a thing in most pagan traditions. Like, there isn't this divine command theory, like Jesus take the wheel. If you asked Thor or Zeus to take the wheel, you would be going somewhere you don't want to go.
I always ask Loki to take the wheel, but that's another story. For the people in our audience, from the regular audience who don't know who Ocean is, and I would expect everybody does know, but it's Ocean Keltoi, Keltoi, who is a pagan, a pagan and a YouTuber, and he's one of the he's very good at what he does.
Yeah, Zen Lizard brings up a good point. Like, you don't want Eris taking the wheel either.
No, that's
or do you? No, I'm just kidding.
Unfortunately, that's that is a problem for me. I do say.
So a couple things. One, call-ins are technically available. Easier if we've interacted with you before and know you. It's just easier to deal with that stuff. The other thing I want to bring up is because the topic is allyship or whatnot. I think one of the things that gets talked about the least, and I think there's a lot of cultural issues, is people's ability to be allies to neurodivergent people, because there's so much focus, cultural focus on, you know, being the perfect, what people consider to be normal. for when it comes to mental health stuff. Like, that seems to be the hardest thing for people to get over.
That's like 80% of the conversations that Christy and I have had live on air as we were talking about neurodivergence and the struggles that we in particular have had. I've gotten a lot of, you're so well spoken, how could you possibly have ADHD? Or you did all of those research for all those in-depth videos you've done, how could you possibly have ADHD? And my response is, number one, do you even know what ADHD is? And number two, like, it's because of my ADHD that I was able to do the research and the scripting and all the deep dives for those videos. I get so hyper-focused at times that I've worked excesses of 9 to 10 hours on something just in an obsessive haze and ended up like hurting my back and other things because I've got a herniated disc, so I have limited work hours. Like, this actually happened when I was talking to Christy Abbey. Like, we talked about this happening when I was working on the collab. Like, I fall into these rabbit holes and people don't see it because they have this stereotyped idea of what that looks like, and I don't fit it.
And yeah, it took me longer to come out about the Asperger's, or I suppose ASD, high functioning ASD, and I hate that term.
High functioning is like a awful term.
We had a bitch fest about that during the interview over on your channel, Christy. Like, we talked at length about how we wished that there was a better term somewhere that existed.
I kind of like to stick with Asperger's. It's kind of which is not to throw the rest of the autistic spectrum under the bus, but it's a very specific. It really is kind of a specific area.
I usually just stick. I usually just stick to autism spectrum.
What you know what made it took me longer to come out as that than it did to come out as trans. And what actually threw me over the edge, pushed me over, was when Jesse Gender was on, and you two afterwards were talking about autism's spectrum, Asperger's autism spectrum, and I'm sitting here going like, me too, and then I got myself retested, and it was like, oh, well, same result.
Yeah.
And I went downstairs, told
Still there.
Yeah. I went downstairs, told my ex-wife I was Asperger's. She said, yeah, I knew that.
Those sort of situations are the funniest, I say, even though I've never experienced that, I don't think, unless I have and I've forgotten.
Well, I mean, yeah, but finding allies on that is actually becoming a little easier too. I realize that's getting more socially acceptable because the concept of what autism is, and I agree with folding Asperger's into it in one respect, is it lessens, because a lot of people know a lot of Asperger's people, especially if they know brilliant people like us, and the it's putting it in there lessens the stigma on autism in general, I think, because an ADHD or ADD, depending on.
It's all ADHD now.
Yeah,
Okay.
It is. I mean, I was originally diagnosed before it was, but yeah, it's all ADHD.
Yeah, ADD is now inattentive subtype ADHD is how they've integrated it, basically. Like, ADHD is hyperactive subtype, ADD is now inattentive subtype, and then the third subtype is combined, which is technically what I am, but I tend to lean more on the inattentive side.
Well, yeah, it used to be your ADHD until you're old enough, and then your ADD. It's like you graduate. For some
well, I mean,
reason.
it also used to be people, for some reason, think you outgrow it, and it's like, no, I didn't get diagnosed until I was an adult.
Yeah.
I do like I know there's a big push in the neuropsych community, and I keep up with the lit to classify ADHD in the autism spectrum, which I think is a smart move, actually.
I think part of the problem with that, though, is that they're actually they're different genes. Like, they're both different genes because they're both genetic that they found, and they're different parts of the brain specifically that are affected. Like, you're far more likely to have ADHD if you are born with autism, but like, they have very different presentations in terms of, like, if you actually do a brain scan of what areas are affected. And that's part of the reason why there's a push against it, too.
Yeah. I mean, well, I have seen, I think someone was just in the waiting room and I missed them. I'm sorry. One of the things, and again, we're going to go back to the stuff we talked about, which was that we speak the same language. And it was like, I don't have to code switch with an ADHD person generally. I don't have to, allotistic? I don't know what the term for...
Allistic.
Allistic? Yeah, because we code switch to allistic all the time to try and make them understand what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, but some of that's cultural, too. Like, there's less of a... If you're any sort of neurodivergent, there's less of a push to secure cultural norms. So it's going... Like, people are going to be more likely to understand in terms of conversation and not have as much of a problem.
Well, a lot of it also is the fact that both ADHD and autism share a major symptom to some degree, and that's executive dysfunction. And executive dysfunction, I think, is what creates the language that we both speak, that Christy and I were talking about. It's that hopping from topic to topic through the slightest, like, relation to each other and being able to follow that conversation, which both folks with ADHD and with autism, you know, especially because, again, people with autism are also very likely to also have ADHD. It seems to run in similar family lines, even if they are different genes. Like, that's one of those things where we can talk more easily to each other, you know, and to other folks that have our same, you know, developmental condition than we can to people who don't. Because, like, allistic people seem to have a much harder time following the topic jumps that happen in conversations between folks who have executive dysfunction as a symptom for a thing.
But I had an allistic person that I'm close to listen to our interview, and basically she said, I got a half an hour into it and I didn't understand anything that was going on. which was funny as hell to me, because I was actually trying to figure out if anybody else could understand. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Perfect.
My whole family is basically on the spectrum. So we do this all the time, and conversations can be wild.
I mean, our interview, both just the two of us and with Jen, like, we took the boob train to Mammary Land with Jen, and that has now become a server meme, by the way, Christy. Like, this is a thing that actually is now brought up on almost every show because of the joke that I made to bring us back on topic. But we talked about boobs and gynecological health, like, respectively 2 separate times for semi-related reasons. The gynecological health thing was brought up in the context of talking about the NIFB a little bit, and we ended up talking about, like, we talked about boobs because of, I think we were talking about, like, bras and how hard they are to get and going into clothing stores, and that's how that, like, came up. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to go back and watch the interview, but that's what I remember. But the point being is, like,
we got there eventually.
Yeah, we got back eventually, but we, like, got into the canoe and just, like, freaking dove off the ADHD waterfall and stayed at the bottom for a while, and it was kind of glorious. Like, people, oh yeah, it was boob shake. It was that was what it was that brought it up, Jen.
Yes.
Because, like, because Jen was commenting on that. Jen put it in the chat for people who are curious. But yeah, those conversations were freaking glorious, because to us and to all of our neurodivergent viewers, we got so much feedback of, it made perfect sense to me. and yet to anybody else who was watching, it sounded like chaos.
I got a couple of PMs on that, and at least one person did actually get himself checked afterwards.
Yeah, I had
He
somebody
said
who DM'd me too.
Yeah, because he said you're talking about people not understanding you, and I understood every word of where you were going, and then I had to think about that for a little while.
Yeah, and I had another person who DM'd me who talked about like their kid has been diagnosed as on the spectrum and they never really thought about it, but there was so much of what we talked about with ADHD and autism that they were like, it gave them pause, and they asked me, how does one exactly get an evaluation for that as an adult? Because I've talked about repeatedly being diagnosed as an adult, because in people assigned female at birth, it is very, very hard for that diagnosis to happen. Like, that's one of the things I rant and rave about and why I'm so open about the fact that I have ADHD. AFAB people do not get ADHD recognized in most cases because our symptoms are so radically different, and like teachers just don't recognize them. You know, like somebody who's AMAB who's like bouncing around the room and throwing freaking, like paper airplanes and spitballs at your head, stereotypically is going to be far more noticed. Like fidgeting, tapping pencils, all the things that happen with that is going to be noticed far more quickly than somebody staring out the window who read the chapter the night before and can't pay attention to what's going on in the front. Like the biggest symptom that a lot of like AFAB people show when they're younger is either slipping grades or middling grades, or report cards that say, oh, well, Allie needs to pay attention to topics that she's not as interested in. She's really intelligent, but she needs to like actually put the work in for every topic.
I don't know. We're Siren, you haven't talked for a while.
Because a lot of the stuff I like don't know a lot about, so I'm just.
Well, no, that's.
I mean, that's
fine.
the
I
nice
just
thing
wanted
about
to know if we were
conversation.
talking.
You can
know
learn
if we were
stuff
talking over you.
and ask questions, and
yeah,
you can always add a little bit more. If you don't know, that's an opportunity to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have to have a question right off the top of your head. I was just saying that you can always ask a question. We aren't anti-question. I don't even know. Sometimes the words that come out of my mouth. Say I start talking and then I don't actually have a plan for the end of what I'm saying, and then I try to sort it out and make a sentence. And
by the way, folks, if you're new here from like my community and you want to do a call-in, the link is down below to the Fluid Voice Discord. Chances are, if a name is said and you're from my community, I'll let people know that you're safe. If you guys want to come in and say hi.
Yeah, please do. By all means. I'm the one who has to hold the board here, so I know.
Yeah, because with Zoom, it's its own complicated thing. Discord's good for screening. Look, everything's complicated about, and we only half know what we're doing.
It's pretty much on anything right now, still.
Well, yeah, but it's because we're a small show, and that's how that happens. Nobody knows what they're doing, and then we end up with terrible instances.
Jen, if it weren't for the laundry, I'd be like, well, if you're on Discord, you're not on camera. You don't have to be on camera to call in.
Well, I mean, it has to be like the Discord's good for screening people, but ultimately they have to end up on Zoom, and then.
Well, you don't have to turn a camera on Zoom either.
That's true. You do not need to turn a camera on Zoom.
As the three of you have the same face staring at us the entire time. And
well, yeah, but like, the
Avatar Alliance is here.
Look, I haven't been worrying too much about their staring. I mean, I don't notice staring always because I don't always pay attention to eye contact and. But yeah, sorry, I'm suddenly remembering the classic either stare or avoid eye contact. Those are the choices. I mean, those are still the choices, but like a lot. I mean, technically, I know how to do the special eye contact thing, but it's a hassle.
I used to say, or somebody gave me a piece of advice pretty early on in music and said, if you're nervous, look at the back of the microphone and the entire audience will think you're looking at them.
Well, it's not about nervousness as much as the fact...
Or look at the bridge of somebody's nose, that way they think you're looking at their eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't want to stare at the bridge of someone's nose. I don't know.
Mine's very lumpy. It's very interesting, actually.
Jen says, Christy, truth. Jen worked in those industries for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The music industry stuff.
Oh, okay.
The truth about the whole microphone thing. Yeah, Jen's good fucking people. Like, I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for hanging out, Jen. How much longer does the show usually go on, by the way? About 2 hours?
Yeah, about 2 hours. So it'll go on for another 40 minutes. Generally, and generally we don't worry as much about the topic at hand the second half, and depending,
we're in the freeform section,
yeah,
well,
which will be differentiated from the other section by being less structured.
Well, if you guys have any questions for me or anything, or if you guys want to talk about like atheist and polytheist allyship, which is kind of a different topic than trans allyship, but it's part of the reason I started my channel, we could talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely fits
really
into
quick.
allyship. Yes.
Is it okay if I bring up something really quick that like just happened in a DM with someone, because I don't know really how to handle this?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you're comfortable, and obviously don't share identifying information.
Yeah.
You're co-hosting today, so it's kind of like whatever you want to say.
I had a friend DM me asking. The first thing they said was, "What does the word trap mean?" And then I was like,
Ow.
okay. And I'm like, why are you asking? And he's like, just answer. And then I said that the concept of traps is hurtful to the trans community. He's like, oh, I just wanted to see what you would say. And then he went on to explain that a mutual trans friend was arguing with him about how it's hurtful. And he's like, he originally didn't think it was hurtful or offensive, and now he's like, it can be offensive, but only if you give it power over you.
Oh, fucking hell. As a stoic, I do not approve this message.
So I don't know how to tell him you're being a fucking idiot.
So the response to that is, what
I think
exactly...
you may have just grasped the words right there.
Well, I mean, those are the words, but if you want to be very diplomatic about it, this is the way that I've handled these sorts of people, like people who want to pretend that they're allies but say this kind of stuff. So can you tell me exactly what makes a trans person a trap? Like, what is the underlying assumption in that phrase? And if he can't answer the question, then explaining to him that, because that word is generally only used to refer again to trans women, we're back to that. The assumption is that because of parts, that person is no longer a woman. So that's inherently hurtful because it's inherently invalidating, regardless of what quote unquote power you think can be or not or cannot be given by it. It's inherently a slur. So that would be the best way to handle that, in my opinion, if you want to be diplomatic, is ask them what he thinks the underlying assumption is in that phrase. And if he can't describe it to you, then describe it somewhat similarly to the way that I did. Basically, that the idea that a trans woman is a trap means that inherently the person who's calling her that does not think she's a woman.
Yeah. I don't think
Christy,
he fully.
you're gonna say something?
Jen suggests that you set it on fire and call him a colonizer and see what happens. But Chrissy is the Dragon Queen, so if you want to preserve that friendship, that may not be the best advice.
Christy, you're gonna say something.
Yeah, of course I've forgotten it. I have a great difficulty with people who say, well, words only have the power over you that you give them, which is such bullshit. And tell him to get over that before he gets to be an adult.
Yeah.
Because that's an asshole way of thinking, and a lot of people will stop being his friend on that.
Yeah, I know. I don't think he fully grasps what he's saying, to be honest. He's not like an intentionally hurtful person.
No.
I think it's because he watches anime so much. I like not to.
Well,
I think he like has a.
It could also be a privilege thing. If he's a cis man, then or a cis boy, I don't know how old this person is, but if this person is cis, then he probably hasn't had to deal with having his identity questioned all that much.
Yeah.
Most cis people don't know what that pain is like.
Interestingly enough, the whole point of trap is that they could be put in a position where they're having their identity questioned.
Yeah, that is actually the problem. So essentially, it's not it's an insult to two people. It's not just an insult to one.
Well, yeah, because there's also the implicit assumption that sex with a trans woman automatically makes you gay, which is all kinds of problematic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the whole overall. That's the point. That's why it's a trap. That's why the word trap, that you have been entrapped.
Yeah, I've been actually
because
having
the person was.
I mean, if you want to be really diplomatic and detailed, you could also bring up the trans panic defense, because the whole trap concept is part of what led to that being a thing.
Yeah.
I can imagine there is somebody out there who's okay, sorry.
What? I'm so sorry. I think there's a delay on your part, which is why
I think so.
This keeps happening. Yeah.
Yeah, you were trying to answer.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Oh, I've been having problems with my friends. Specifically when it comes to this concept. For some reason, it's really hard for them to grasp that this is an awful, offensive thing. Please stop. I had another friend who wanted to go to a convention dressed up as a girl with a mask on to see how many people he could get to simp over him. I'm just having a lot of problems.
Because that's not inherently abusive and problematic at all.
No, right? None of them are getting what I'm saying, and it's really annoying because all my friends are cis, and I don't have anyone else to, help me with this.
Oh,
well, again, here's the layers to this. I would propose, here's the 3 steps to dealing with this in the most diplomatic way, educational and diplomatic way possible. Step 1 would be ask him what he thinks trap actually means in terms of, defining it. Define what trap means. Then step 2 would be if he either can't, or even if he gets it right, which is, the assumption that a trans woman is automatically not a woman because there's still parts down there, then explore that a little bit and talk about the way that it's invalidating, especially if you talk about your own experiences. And step 3 would be to talk about the way that things like the concept of trap have been used. And again, apologies for using a slur here, but we're discussing how to deal with somebody who doesn't think it is one. So apologies for having to use it. How it's been used for the trans panic defense, and how people have literally been murdered over the, not being able to quote unquote clock somebody, and how automatically that puts trans women in particular, but trans people overall, because this has happened to trans men too. This has happened to non-binary people, Like, not being able to clock us has put people in literal danger of losing their fucking lives. So when you have a concept like that, it seems funny and it seems innocent if you're an anime fan or you hang out on Chan boards. But ultimately, what you're actually saying to people is, when I say who I am, you know, when you tell me who you are, I don't believe you.
Right.
You know, unless your body conforms to what I expect, then I don't believe you. And if you're like, if you explain that that's the message he's communicating when he uses terms like that, then like that's the best way to deal with that, is to explain what he's communicating and whether he realizes that or not, all of the layers that go to it. In the same way that my friend had to point out to me when I was being turfy that, hey, by the way, all the social stigma that goes into being trans, do you really think that your average predator would just do that? You know, you have to kind of break down the logic of it.
Yeah, I think because if we're talking about the anime community, there's also a portion that makes the argument that they're just talking about that it's only used for feminine men in anime who still identify as men or whatever, so therefore it's not transphobic. But like
But
that
those are
isn't
drag
always
queens.
the case. Yeah, but like yeah, and it's also not always the case. It's one of those things where you can't make an argument that some people use trap in the anime community to define drag queens, essentially the anime drag queen equivalent, while, you know, society is still out there, the general populace is still out there, and trap is still used in harmful ways in the not to say that the anime community isn't a part of the real world, but the real world. People still use trap to talk about trans women.
Well, and beyond that, yet again, you know, like, why can't you just use drag queen? Why can't you just use that term? It's a term that already exists.
Yeah.
And it's not inherently offensive. Like, it can be used in an offensive way, but there are people who very much identify as drag queens. There are people who enjoy the spectacle of drag. Like, it is not inherently 100% of the time an offensive term the way that trap is.
Yeah.
You can say the same offensive things if you really want to, but you end up trapped into saying offensive things just because of the rhetoric you're using.
Okay, Eliani would like to come in for a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's
I'm sorry if that was a weird topic or
no, not at all. This is
no,
but the way you were talking about it has a lot to do with allyship, and not, to be perfectly honest, if it's not important to them to use it, and it is important for them not to use it, and they are close to you, then the person who's it's important to gets the default.
Well, and the last bit to say on that, as far as what you just said, Christy, to build on that, is your comfort more important than my mental health?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
I didn't come in here to interject into the conversation. I just came here to say hello to my old friends. It's been a couple months. It's good to hear from you guys. And I want to give massive kudos to Alex. Great work on the channel. Immense growth. So keep up the work, guys. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, thank you very much. And like
our glorious founder.
I'm nothing special. You guys are the ones that did all the work. I'm doing my own thing now. So keep up the great work, guys. I'm always around. So that's it.
Yeah,
that's all
thank you very much. And I will actually contact you while I'm playing Phantasy Star Online 2. Iliani. I was on for a bit. Just because it is really chill and it is fun to
I saw, is Cyrene and Aliakai, are one of you two going to be the new co-host, or
we haven't set
I'm
up.
currently a guest.
Yeah, a
gotcha.
guest co-host. Just because we haven't set it up fully, we still need to have more conversation about that.
Gotcha.
Essentially, what we're doing for now is having a rotating co-host, and
Awesome.
And so Sophia and Jesse have also agreed to do it, and so there was one more person, and I'm completely blanking on who it was. So
Gotcha. Awesome. That's actually a very good idea. I like that. So yeah. All right. Well, you guys enjoy. I'm going to keep watching. Like I said, I just wanted to hop in, say hello, guys, and keep up the great work. And you guys will see me around. So,
Yeah, thank
that's all.
you.
thank you.
Love, guys.
Okay.
See you later, Perfect.
Well,
See you later,
peace.
Sophia, Christy, and Alex. See you guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
No, well, no, it's okay. Not Sophia. This is Siren, but Sophia was on last week, when I wasn't. So
That was last week was rough. But I mean,
sorry.
that was a lot of bad luck. It's one of those things. Whatever, we'll need to deal with getting a few pre-records and the in the safety bin in case there's issues again, because issues happen.
Issues happen. It's okay.
Yeah.
So, Siren, I hope that you felt that we gave good advice for that. Like, hopefully that's probably the most diplomatic way to handle it. I mean, you could burn it down, too, if you wanted to. But I figured it sounded like you kind of wanted to preserve the friendship somehow.
Okay. Yeah, it was very helpful.
I don't think anybody was recommending setting him on fire or something.
I mean, Jen was, but that's Jen's solution to every problem.
I mean, it's a decent...
I am.
Foolproof solution. Like, you know, what could possibly go wrong with that solution?
This is the place where I'm not, where I don't, where I'm acting like your parent because I want to burn it down. So hurt my kid, burn it down.
It's ironic. It's ironic that the whole situation comes about because of using the word trap. Why use the word trap? What makes it a trap is because of it threatens their identity, which it's all about identity, and they have no trouble with other people having a problem with the identity, but if they're presented with a problem with their identity, that would be serious.
Oh, look, we're back to the burden of representation again.
Oh yeah, isn't it?
Which, honestly, like, as a pagan in atheist spaces, like, which was the topic I was bringing up earlier, I definitely feel, me and Ocean both, we're basically, like, the token pagans in a lot of atheist spaces. Wolf is starting to come out into that. Witch is starting to come out into that. Celery is starting to come out into that a little bit. But, like, for the most part, if you're an atheist and you want to talk to a pagan, it's either Ocean or I, and most of the time it's Ocean. Like, to the point where people started calling me the female Ocean at one point, which pissed me the fuck off, because, like, I'm my own person, thank you, and I'm also not a heathen.
Well, Siren is very much like me, but is not me, and I will say that.
Yeah. Well, you're two different people. In fact, you're even calling from two different locations. Last I checked, I mean the same general location, but like you're not both standing in front of the same screen talking in front of the same mic. Like,
no, although we're within we're within 20 yards of each other.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm in 20 yards of Savaris, but like I don't talk about that all the time. I mean, he also hasn't guested on the show for a while because we like the cooler guests.
Ooh, I'm
no,
sorry.
No. It's fine. I might ask him to be like see if he's interested in guesting again sometime. I mean, he's not far. It wouldn't be hard to talk with him.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I would actually that I would. Well, this is stuff for later anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of having to be this is the question, the question asked and was in because we can't just give a good fuck off to some of this stuff. We have to answer it, and I get tired of answering it sometimes.
Yeah,
I really
a lot
do.
of people do. I don't necessarily get that tired of talking, but yeah, no, I totally get that. Although, you know, there are various levels of there are various levels of attitudes in terms of some people are like hate anyone trans or whatnot. Like the very idea of it, the very notion of being trans is considered an abomination to them. Then you have the ignorant people who think they know better than you do, and
Yeah.
the as well as better than the therapists who diagnosed you, is better than like all that thing that, you know, they've
better
got
than the doctor who
out.
prescribes your medication, you know, better than, well, remember Ozma, like, you keep forgetting, like, the big, it's all about big pharma, right? Like, it's this whole conspiracy theory, and like the 5G is making the friggin' frogs trans too. So like, legit, guys, come on, you got to put all the things together. It's the Illuminati doing the Satan worship. Like, you got to put it all together, okay? Like, it's coming through the airwaves, and you know, the experts, they're being paid off by NASA to tell everybody that this is the truth. All right, like, it's only the people who know exactly where to put the tinfoil that can tell you the truth, and they've got the tinfoil in the right spots. They got it all figured out.
Well, yeah.
I put in my application for the Illuminati. I haven't heard back yet because it sounds like a sweet gig.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of those are stemmed from the anti-Jewish conspiracy theory. So obviously, George Soros or whatever is the one funding all of it, and.
Oh yeah, you've apparently got that background. Where the fuck is my Soros check? Like, where is it? Like, I'm clearly a shill for the fucking devil. Like, where the fuck is it?
I don't know. Like, I was born and raised Jewish, like, and I still haven't gotten a check. Like, what the fuck? Like, I got a check in my legal name. I got a check from the government. So even Trump signed a fucking check in my right name. Why the fuck hasn't Soros given me like $1,200?
Jen says there's a backlog right now, and they'll get back to you in about 6 to 8 weeks. Oh yeah, Jen's a lizard people, by the way, which they also have all the way figured out.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
I always suspected.
I mean, it makes sense.
The sad thing is I actually like fell down a rabbit hole at one point, reading up on the whole like mega conspiracy theory that the QAnon people believe in, and like I found charts and shit to explain it, and was shocked at how interconnected all of the fucking conspiracy shit was. It hurt my brain to say even the quarter of it that I said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I got lost. Sorry. No, I got
the
lost.
issue of the trap and that sort of thing. Recognizing that you don't have to always be the one to bring it up. You don't always have to be the one to explain it to them. But you are going to steadily recognize that that's an issue where somebody is eventually going to have to explain it to them. And it's either going to be a trans person or an ally, but somebody's going to have to explain it to them at some point.
Well, and the thing about that...
And that's part of the burden of representation that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and honestly...
You're going to realize you have to.
And honestly, like it would help a lot if more allies did like actively speak up. Like it's the tightrope thing of like I'm sure with that where it's like you don't want to speak over people, but you do want to say something.
Back the people who are speaking out, or be the person if nobody else is. Basically, that's the way that like it was expressed to me a while ago. Is back the people speaking up if there are people speaking up from that community. Be the person if they're not.
Yeah, and because I mean, to some degree, people.
No, Ozma. Here, let me explain to you what non-binary people mean.
But yeah,
Sorry, my sense of humor.
Right.
I mean, it's
would
good.
that be mansplaining or transplaining? I'm not sure.
No, we transplain all the time. Nobody listens. It's okay.
Well, I mean, with a lot of that stuff, it's how should I put this? It's people are more likely to listen to people they have more in common with. Just there are various studies about this, and I wish I remembered them off the top of my head. But like that's part of why allyship is so important, like on another level, because people who are less likely to listen to trans people are more likely to still listen to allies.
Yeah. And one of the things allies do, because we are I hate playing, well, not playing victim, just, you know, being in the position where victim is our identity, unfortunately. One of the things allies do when they speak up is make sure that in society it's less acceptable. And
yeah, because it's not just the oppressed people speaking out, it's also people of the same class as the oppressors, you know, that are speaking out as well. Like, it's clear that that's called horizontal social pressure in terms of things like propaganda and the like.
Could not remember the term.
Horizontal social pressure is basically like where your peers don't think something is cool, so you get pressured out of thinking that way. Horizontal social pressure can reinforce bigotry, or it can break it. And it's part of the reason why the Harper's letter that I just broke down into pieces on my channel, like, it's part of the reason why that letter exists, is to try to get your centrist aunt TM to horizontally socially pressure people against stuff like cancel culture, or against calling out their friends, which in reality, like, quote unquote cancel culture, none of the examples in that letter have anything to do with it. I break it down in the video, but like, they don't. They're all like social institutions, like people in power who did a shitty thing, who got fired, except for one, which had nothing to do with cancel culture either. It was actually a news, like a head of a newspaper being shitty because somebody supported the BLM movement and was black, and so they were like, you can't write about it anymore because clearly you're biased, which is shitty, but it's not cancel culture. You know, somebody getting fired as, or rather demoted as the head of research at an institution for circulating studies that specifically, you know, advocate in their commentary in them for choosing, for example, zygotes based off of potential intelligence, like ratings based off of genes. That's not cancel culture. That's called horizontal social pressure. The institution is like, this don't represent our values, bye.
Yeah.
And that's what the most of those examples are. If you are an ally and you sit there and you let your friends say shitty stuff because you don't want to get uncomfortable and get into an argument with them, what you're doing is you're tacitly accepting that what they're doing is okay. And unfortunately, it sucks because for folks who are in marginalized communities, it can be dangerous for us to speak out. Like, physically sometimes dangerous, but for allies, the only thing that's at risk is your social standing. You're not near as likely to get attacked or hurt.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although, obviously, social standing, I mean, depending on the person, social standing in itself, all that stuff can be, it can be scary, but it's also one of those things where the more people who can speak out, the better.
Well, because that then amplifies that's not okay. In the same way that gay marriage got approved across the nation because people spoke up and were like, hey, you know, it's okay to be gay. Like, it's a completely unchangeable fact about yourself. You're cool. And spoke out against people using gay as a pejorative, spoke out against people using, you know, a lot of terms around that as pejoratives. I'm not going to say the slurs. Like, those are slurs that I've got no business saying. But, like, horizontal social pressure made it so that things like the N slur for Black people, things like the S slur for Hispanic folks, you know, Latinx folks, things like the F slur for gay people, those are no longer socially acceptable to just say. And how did that happen? Because people decided it wasn't okay and started calling each other out on it. If you want like bigotry against trans people to go away, then allies need to be willing to speak up alongside the people that they're allied with.
Yeah, and like, obviously, you know, in our position, there's the aspect of, like, we kind of are in a situation where we have to get allies, like, just due to the numerical aspect of that.
I mean, if we were the majority, we wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah, we would probably have different problems. Or would we have as many problems? Shit, because a lot of things. I'm still of the opinion that a lot of things are based around the nationalistic thing and making a strong country.
Oh no, you don't want that. Being in the majority is hard.
Again,
hey, at least you automatically get to be human. Sorry, Christy, go ahead.
I passed as white straight and cis my entire life, which I have been none of those things. So I get privilege. It's
yeah. Well, we are starting to get to the end times of the show. The end times of the show.
It's about time for Perfict to be raptured.
I mean, I'd have a disagreement, but he is perfect. And so it's hard not. Anyways, I'm in a weird mood. Whatever order people want to be, just mention, you know, where people can find you and anything that you're working on. Whoever wants to speak out first, otherwise I will.
Go ahead.
Okay, fine. I will. I can be found Ozma in the Dark just about everywhere. I did this thing on Twitter where I have a poll where I for what I should do with 700 followers. It was tied for swearing every sentence and singing all of Les Mis because I loved Les Mis, and this was like months ago. And because of the rules of Twitter, I have to do that now, and I'm gonna have to make a YouTube video about it, and I'm gonna focus on things one song at a time. But that should be interesting. A lot of what else I'm working on is trying to make sure to get affordable housing and a lot of personal life stuff. So, and I've been streaming raids recently, and obviously the Fluid Voice still. But yeah.
How did you get 700? I have 178 as of 5 minutes ago.
How did I get 700 followers on Twitter? Well,
on
You also are nowhere near
Twitter.
as dark as I am.
Yeah, no, on Twitter, not on anything else.
When you say...
You cut out there. Perfect.
When you say, what am I supposed to do with 750 followers? My immediate thought was, start a death cult.
It was just 700 followers. I'm not up to 750.
I mean, if you want to join a death cult, just go show up at an evangelical church.
Ooh, yeah.
But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've got like I think 20 some amount YouTube subscribers, because I don't make regular enough content.
I have that same problem. I'll go next. Siren and I were working on some stuff, and it is entirely my fault because I am way too stuck up my own ass to get things done. And I will publicly apologize for doing that because it's been expected for some of the stuff has been expected for a while, and I just haven't done it. So I still have an interview. I have an interview with Aria from Free Talk Live on Wednesday, which is already in the can, and it was great. First time I'm talking to someone who I disagree with politically. So there you go. And
who also isn't like a terrible person. I almost I'm never 100% on all this. I almost said a really bad swear word. But yes, go on. Sorry, I was just reminded of that because you have talked to someone terrible who you disagree with, but this is different.
Yes, yes, I have, but unfortunately, that's long gone as far as whether you can find it. Well, it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna get that stuff needs to be done. The collab I did with Aliakai and a lot of other people about the original J.K. Rowling monster manifesto. I'm going to be releasing on Monday the uncut version of that, but I have to make a part 2 now because of the Harper's thing and her little tirade on Twitter. So
wait, which
I probably
one?
will be doing that. Oh, the one from a couple weeks ago. It just was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Can I make it stop? So I'm going to be releasing the uncut version of my section, which is, it's got more jokes in it, but
Hey, I kept some of the best ones.
Yes, you did. And you left out one. You left out the best one, but you kept the good one. And
I don't know. The best one is, let's assume, I don't know, all of them. Like that has become a meme in the server also. It's become a meme between the two of us. Like that is the best joke in that entire thing, and I will stand on that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I also have an interview with Callan, which I just haven't been able to put in a schedule yet, which is weird. I've done it. It's recorded. It's the second Callan, so we can actually see if we can finish the interview more than one question. So we got to the second question, and Jesse and I and Steve are going to be doing something pretty soon, which is going to be nice. And I think that's it. I'm Normality Quake on Twitter, NORMAL IT Quake, IT Quake, like Normality like I'm not, and Quake like earthquake, one word on Twitter, and that's it. Chris Abbey music still exists. And Christy Abbey is my own channel where I talk to I talk to the lovelies. And Ally's certainly gotten a lot of attention, which yay. So okay, I think I'm done.
And now for a stark contrast. I'm on Discord at the Rumpus Room, and I do this.
Yep.
That's it.
I haven't really started up anything yet. But my channel is in the works currently. I'm going to be focusing mostly on queer horror in different medias. CyreneV is my Twitter. CyreneV is going to be my channel. Don't do much else. I have an art Instagram, but no one wants to know about that.
Yes, it's good. Stop. Sorry, I'm being a parent again. I'll stop.
My art Instagram is
You can never stop being a parent.
What? I'm sorry. What is it?
Dots.verity. So the word dots, then a period, and then verity.
Well, I think that's actually a cool name.
Yeah.
And Ally's everywhere.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of stuff going on. If you guys look up my name as it is spelled, Aliakai, that's the name of my channel. It's also the name of my Twitter. So I am going to be doing, obviously every week we do Xenia Bridge, Zen Aldrich and I, and tomorrow night at 7:30 PST, 10:30 EST, we're going to be having Neil the 604 Atheist on. So that's going to be interesting. We're going to be talking about allyship and how he manages to have such a diverse crowd on his channel, and things that like atheists and polytheists can do to work better together, and issues that he sees in the community right now. Then on Wednesday, I'm going to be over on Jen's channel for a switcheroo, and we're going to talk about the work we do on Xenia Bridge. And we're also going to be talking about some of the stuff that's been going on in the atheist community lately, because Jen has a lot to say about it and has been saying all of it on Twitter, and it's about time she said more of it on her channel, because, you know, like, I couldn't get her to stop breathing fire if I wanted to, not in her own space especially. This Thursday coming up, I'm also going to be premiering a video about how the ancient Athenians celebrated the New Year. There were actually a series of 7 festivals over the course of 2 lunar months, which is how they organized their calendar. So I go through all of those different festivals and like what they consisted of, what the mythology is around them. And then at the end, for people who are Reconstructionists or are just curious about what Reconstructionists do in our spare time, I talk a little bit about modern ways that those things can be celebrated when you don't necessarily have an entire like city to say sacrifice oxen with. So that's what I'm going to be doing on my channel this week. Ocean's probably going to be putting out a video as well. We usually do something called the Bacon Bar Hop, where on Thursdays he premieres his videos at 8:30 EST and I premiere mine at 9. And we may have another pagan joining us for the Bar Hop this week as well. So we're pretty excited about that.
And Xenia Bridge, for the record, we did kind of talk about it, and Xenia Bridge is another of our sister shows now. Because you and Jen have both been on, and you're officially one of us.
One of us. One of us.
and we're one of you. And
yep, Thursday is Thursday, as the chant
we
said,
accept
sorry.
you. We accept you. One of us.
I have a very hard time calling myself trans because I've been like hit so much by the gender fluid people aren't trans, or you identify as femme often enough that you're not trans, or you pass so you're not trans.
Like,
up to the point where I like don't even talk about pronouns half the time. So it's a thing that I'm still working through.
yeah,
well,
I mean,
you're unfortunately now sistered to us, so you have to you have no choice. Although Jen is not trans, so we can let her in anyway. We let Perfict in.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say
Perfect, and you'll let anybody in.
Sometimes I feel like sometimes that happens though with identity, like in terms of especially if it's an atypical one, it makes it a lot more I don't know. I mean, I guess I tended to worry a bit more about the fuck. What's the term? Like, not co-opting something
Appropriation.
Yeah, or yeah, like if basically the fear about your identity being accurate to you describing yourself as the identity being accurate to yours. that fear.
Oh, yeah.
Like for me, it's not that I don't feel that way. It's more that because, for example, pronouns don't always cause dysphoria for me, or they very rarely do. Like a lot of people have said, well, you're not trans then if pronouns are not a big issue for you, even though I deal with severe dysphoria on the days where where my brain shifts to, you want to be androgynous, why do you have such big boobs?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just like, I mean, I identify as agender like half the time and femme the other half of the time, but like, I don't know how to describe it half the time. Anyways, I don't know where I was going there. I may have nervously petered my brain out.
That's fair. We were trying to wrap up anyway.
Yeah.
That's a good place to stop. Our brains all,
Yeah.
Our brains all stop. I had a joke. Oh shit! I'm catching.
No, your brain has stopped. You can't say the joke now. Your brain has stopped. It's quit.
Oh my god.
404 brain not found.
Anyways, I forgot to mention the one place where I'm not Ozma in the Dark in my main channel, wow. In Twitter, I can be found at Talking to Nothing. Talking to Nothing. It's like Talking to Nothing, but without the G. Yeah, anyways, sorry. Everyone, have a good time.
Wait, before
You couldn't
we
afford the G at the time.
Before we go, we do have a Patreon we're working on, and
yes,
there's gonna be a coffee account as soon as I can set it up properly for this. I have to set it up as a separate thing from mine, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah.
And everybody's thing will be in the bottom.
Peace.
Yeah. Unless,
long and prosper.
I mean, hopefully I didn't mess up there. Anyways, yeah. have a good one.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Button.
Are we free?